Now, talking about redrawing the Japanese domains. Domains, guys, it means what? Domains means an area of territory owned or controlled by a ruler or by the government. So, a domain means a piece of land. It's owned by the government itself. Um, Another word for it, we can say that it's a fief. The fief, guys, or the fief, it's an estate of land, so it's a piece of land, especially one held on condition of feudal service. So a fief, guys, it's a piece of land owned by the government or by the emperor, and it's given um, to the noble people in return for a service. Okay, so how did Tokugawa Ieyasu redraw the Japanese domains? First of all, he had an internal war between him and between his enemies inside of Japan. We're talking about Japanese between each other. So after internal wars together, Tokugawa Ieyasu won over them, and he took their lands from them after defeating his enemies, and later he gave the lands that he took from the enemies and gave it to his loyal daimyo and samurai, rewarded them with it. So now the okay, just let me okay. So here, sorry for that, just died. Okay, and he rewarded his daimyo and samurai by giving them the lands. Here we call them the domains or the fief, and giving them to his daimyo, loyal daimyo, and loyal samurai. Then he did not stop here. He also continued. He relocated the inhabitants from 229 enemy daimyos, so he relocated them. 229 enemy daimyos with their families, relocated them from moving them from their own domain or fief to another. So he, imagine this with me, guys. He is a daimyo, he is a controller, he is a noble over a piece of land, over a fief, or over a domain. When he lost the war between him and Tokugawa, Tokugawa wanted to make him weak. So he did what? He removed him from the place that he, or from the land, or from the domain that he already gained. He already is gaining power in it. So he removed it from there and moved them. Later on, we're gonna see that he moved them to the edges of Japan. So now they're like, they do not have any dominant power over the people anymore, because he moved them from there and he took their money and he took their power from them after defeating them, and he took their lands. Now, about, guys, Tokugawa, guys, had three-step method that led him finally to become the what? To become the dominant power of Japan, and that led him to redraw the Japanese domains to himself and to make him isolating himself from the attacks from outside or from his enemies that they were sent to the edges of Japan. So Tokugawa had three steps. If he followed, if we're gonna read about them now, if we followed them, we're gonna see how Tokugawa eventually was able to protect himself from the outsider attacks and from the enemies that they were already in Japan, and um, how he was able to become the dominant power, protecting himself from any attack. The first step, guys, that he controlled the largest domain in Japan. The largest domain, the largest land in Japan that was controlled by not Tokugawa, but after the internal wars between Tokugawa and his enemies, he controlled it. What was the name of the land? Later on, he named it the Tokugawa domain. So he controlled it and named it after him. It was the largest domain that Tokugawa controlled. So, what is the name of the largest domain that Tokugawa controlled? The Tokugawa domain. طيب. In order for him to control the greatest land or the largest domain, he used two things. Number one, he used the the long trusted daimyo. So he used the daimyo, the head of the nobles, the well trusted, the long trusted ones, that they are like loyal supporters for him. And he used 17,000 lower ranking what samurai, that they were loyal to him even before he became the what, the shogun. So even before him becoming the shogun, he had, like when he was a daimyo, he had a loyal samurai for him, 17,000 low ranking samurai loyal to him, and a long trusted daimyo. Now after him becoming the shogun, they were working for him. Two things had helped him to control the Tokugawa domain: the long trusted daimyo and 17,000 lower ranking samurai who were loyal to him even before him becoming the shogun. Now, if we want to mention the characteristics of the long trusted daimyo and the 17,000 samurai, we're gonna mention their characteristics, saying that they were one, the most trusted people for Tokugawa, and number two, they were loyal supporters for him even before him becoming the shogun. And guys, the when we talk about the long trusted daimyo and the samurai that they were working for Tokugawa, they were his inner core ring of defense. So you can tell that now we're talking about a three steps of what, of three rings of what, of defense. The first one, it's the what, the long trusted daimyo, in addition to the 17,000 low ranking samurai who were loyal to him before him becoming the shogun. This was the first, or the inner core, or the first ring of defense for Tokugawa. The second one, or step number two, or the second line of defense, or the middle perimeter of daimyo, guys, they were his family members, his nephews. They were the second and the third sons of the family members. And the characteristic of them, that they had what, a direct or uh, yes, who had a bloodline that was linked immediately to who, or directly to who, to Tokugawa Ieyasu. So they were their family members, his family members, the second and the third sons of the family, and they were like his nephews, and they had direct bloodline with him, linked with him. This was the second line of defense. So the first one, the long trusted daimyo with the 17,000 samurai. The second line of defense was his nephews, or the second or third sons of the family members. The third one, or the third, or the outsider daimyo, yani we can say first, second, third, or we can say inner core, or middle perimeter, and the outsider daimyo. The outsider daimyo, you're gonna tell me now, guys, like they were his enemies. Yes, but think about it. Who were the outsider daimyos? They were the people who he, like, who fought against Tokugawa from the first place at the inner wars. He fought with them for unification, the war of unification. So they were like, Tokugawa and them were against each other. Top teacher, how can they become his outsider defense wall? We're gonna know within a second. They were what? They were removed from their lands, as we said, and they were sent to where? To the edges of Japan. So now they are around Japan. They surround Japan. Type. What will happen here? If anyone comes from outside of Japan, they will go and fight who first? They would go and fight the Japanese people who were living in the edges. Yes, they were not loyal to Tokugawa, but they were loyal to Japan, and they did not want anyone from outside to come and take Japan from them. So they were the outsider line that helped to support Tokugawa and they were the first to be attacked during any foreign invasion. Now, who was the emperor at that time? Of course, guys, what is the benefit of sending the enemies, the inner enemies, send them to the edges of Japan? Because Tokugawa wanted to take them away and to take his enemies as far as he can and move them as far as he can from the shogun, means from him. He wanted to move them as far as he can from him. Now, who was the emperor at that time? As we said, they were the outside daimyo. Who was the emperor at that time? He was not Tokugawa. Tokugawa was the shogun. Who was taking the title of the emperor? His name was Yamato. But Yamato also, guys, he was sent to the edges of Japan islands, and he was kicked out from the throne without any power. He was the emperor of the throne, but he was without any power. He was kicked out from the throne and relocated at the edges of Japan. And now, who became the emperor? You can guess. Tokugawa Ieyasu became the emperor and the shogun at the same time. Now, if the outside daimyo wanted to attack Tokugawa, they needed to go through the second line of defense and the first line of defense, or from the middle perimeter and the inner core of defense. So they need to go first through and attack the family members first. Then after them, they will start fighting the most trusted supporters of Tokugawa, the inner perimeter. So he had no problem. He had a very good defense uh, idea or plan. And if anyone from the outsider, from foreign invasion from foreigners wants to invade Japan, they need to go first through the outside daimyo, then the second line of defense, then the inner ring of defense. So what was the problem that the outside daimyo had to face? The problem was that they were the first to be attacked during any foreign invasion. That's it for today, guys. If you have any question, you are so welcome to ask me.